Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 111.
Hi, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Larry.
I'm Rick.
And we're going to kick off this week with last week's trivia question.
Yes, and an interesting one it was. Why don't you lay out the ground rules here?
So Rick came up with the question, and it is this. In the middle of a match, you've started the match with your iron-sighted pistol, but you've got one of these big dot sights, big dot front sight with a real wide V-notch for a rear sight. And then you discover we got a 50-yard stage coming up.
Yeah.
And these aren't very precise for 50 yards, so you think, right? So,
yep.
And I want to change those out and get a real nice black on black, real skinny front sight with a nice crisp square notch sight picture for that.
Yeah.
So, in the middle of the match, are you allowed to change your sights to get an advantage for that stage?
Right.
So, from the IDPA perspective?
From the IDPA perspective, more than a few people responded correctly that the rule book really does not address it. There is not a rule that says you cannot change your sights. I mean, there's nothing. The rule book says essentially conventional post and notch sights are legal. And so both the sight that you're using when you start the match and the sight that you want to change to are both legal for IDPA competition. But the question is, in the absence of a broken gun, it's not like the sight flew off or I need to change my gun because it broke. It's just a matter of, is it okay to change the sights? Even though the rule book does not specifically address it, there are some rules that apply. Now, one of the things about the two sports is a lot of people have characterized the IDPA rule book as being one of, if it's not explicitly allowed, it's not allowed. And USPSA sometimes is kind of characterized the other way, that if it's not specifically disallowed, it's okay.
Right. And doesn't say I can't do that.
Right. And
so I can.
The IDPA rulebook gives the match director especially pretty broad powers, I mean, in terms of how he or she interprets the rules. And so the people who responded, either they say the rulebook doesn't address it, or some people just said it's okay. I'd say they're wrong. And the reason why is if you consider that the act of changing the sight isn't one of repairing the gun, it's to get a competitive advantage that you're, essentially, it would be like the IDPA rules that say you can't stoke your magazines with different numbers of rounds, because,
you have to load a division capacity unless everyone's told otherwise.
Right. You're not allowed to kind of anticipate the situation and adapt to it.
And essentially plan your reload.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the same kind of theory, even in the absence of a specific rule allowing it, or disallowing it, applies. And the rules, it's interesting that there's like 3 different instances in the rule book where a phrase comes up that competitors will refrain from unsportsmanlike conduct, unfair actions. And that's competition rule C2. It's also listed under the penalties for conduct, PC2. And I would say that the act of trying to get an advantage on a stage-by-stage basis by altering your gun would come under the heading of an unfair action or unsportsmanlike conduct. And as match director, that's the rule I would pull out to prevent it. And I would like to think that most match directors would make the same call, that allowing a competitor to alter their gun to better suit it for a different stage completely, is kind of a slap in the face to the whole idea that you have rules that define the characteristics of a certain gun and that you're not allowed to change it over the course of the day. You have the gun. There's a rule that says you have to use the same gun.
Right.
And although I don't really think that applies, I mean, it's hard to argue that a gun, by changing the sight, has become a different gun. In essence, it has. I mean, for competition purposes, a serialized frame is not a gun. The gun is the barrel, the length of the barrel, the grips, the weight, all of it combines to form the gun. And if you change the gun, to something that it's not, you could argue that it's not the same gun. But whichever rule you pull out, I think a match director has plenty of ammunition in the rule book as it's written here in early 2013
to deny that request.
So that's my ruling as match director of the Power Factor show.
So no,
is IDPA is not allowed.
Can't do it. All right. For USPSA, the answer is also you can't do it, but it kind of depends on the range master, really, of his approval. But the gun has to break, really, in order for you to do that. So to request, I just want to change my sights just because, that's not going to fly. So Rule 5.1.7 says competitors must use the same handgun and type of sights for all courses of fire in a match. However, in the event the competitor's handgun or sights become unserviceable or unsafe, then the competitor must, before using a substitute, seek permission from the range master to change. So if you want to change anything on your gun, the sights or the gun itself, because it broke, you need to go see the range master in USPSA. And he's in an official match, he's going to have a form, and it's going to say original gun, replacement gun, and it's barrel length, 5.5, whatever, type of sights, iron sights, and he's going to write all these features down, frame, model, whatever, and he's going to determine whether or not he's going to allow you to make that change.
Now, is he making some kind of a subjective determination about whether the change is fair or the shooter's deriving an advantage from doing so?
Yes, that's okay. Exactly. But let's say I've got a 6-inch gun and a 5-inch gun.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you which one I started the match with, but it broke and I have to go to the other one. Can the range master deny me changing the gun because he perceives
that
the
was
other
kind of where
one,
I was going with
the other one's an advantage? Well,
right.
who says a 6-inch gun is better? Who says a 5-inch gun is better?
But the range master does.
I might think that one's better than the other, but
is that his call?
Where is
that
the
range master's call?
That's going to be his call. Yeah.
Okay.
So
because I have done that, I've changed from a 6-inch gun to a 5-inch gun.
Okay.
And I had to re-chrono because I already chronoed with a 6-inch barrel. And the range master was standing there right over my shoulder while they chronoed the rounds. And then once I made Power Factor, he said okay.
Yeah.
But you wonder if I tried to go the other way from a 5-inch gun with no magwell. And then switch to a 6-inch gun with big magwell, fiber optic sights.
There you go.
Would he have said that gun is, even if it's legal for your division, it's not enough like the one that you were using?
And that actually, the magwell thing, I know we're getting a little off topic, but that might stop you right there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to know what are the criteria and what are they authorized. On what basis are they authorized to make their decisions on something like that?
Now, when that rule says same handgun and type of sights, generally it's referring to iron sights versus optic sights. So let's say you're in production division and you do something like you load 12 rounds in your magazine and hey, guess what? You got bumped to open. You can't then go, oh, well, since I'm in open division, I'm just going to go get my open gun out of the car. It's like, nope, you got to use the same gun for the whole match.
Right.
So if you happen to have longer magazines that are legal for open, you could do that.
Yeah.
But for that same gun. But otherwise, you're stuck with that type of sight. So again, the answer is no in USPSA.
Okay.
So
the no's have it.
So we got a bunch of answers. We got a lot of wrong answers, but we got more right answers than wrong, I would say.
And who's our lucky winner?
Our winner is William McCullough.
From the clan McCullough. Okay, so if he can produce the proper tartan, he'll get the prize for answering the question correctly.
So we will be in contact with you, William. So congratulations. As far as I know, that's 500 Rainier Ballistics bullets of your choice.
Oh, man.
If they have any left in stock.
Yeah.
So, which kind of brings us up to our next topic, which is our topic of the week. So.
Exactly. And our topic is based on the political environment in the United States right now as it exists in the realms of gun ownership, buying guns, selling guns, and how that does or might affect competition shooting.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of speculation because, I mean, those of us that were shooting in competition when the 1994 assault weapon ban was in effect, we've had some experience dealing with inability to get high cap magazines, and there were some issues, I think, kind of regionally, on what kind of how tough was it to get production equipment. Production meaning produced in a factory, manufactured equipment that you could use in the competitive divisions that you wanted to compete in.
Right.
And so, we had some, from my perspective, when I started shooting in '97, I was shooting with a single stack 45. I didn't even own any 8-round magazines in 10-round mags in 1997.
Okay.
If you think back, or if you're too young to remember, when Wilson Combat introduced their 10-round mag, they called it the Bureaucrat, because they didn't make any 10-round mags until the 10-round limit was established.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, there were some. I had a big stick, a single stack 11-round mag that was 170 millimeters, and so
it only held 11 rounds.
Yeah. And so when I shot limited with my single stack,
I was wondering how many that would hold.
I had a belt full of 8-round mags, and then my big stick, and I would put it in the proper place in my pouch, so that if I came on to a stage that had a bunch of steel or something, that reload I'd have 12 rounds in the gun.
Wow.
And so that was kind of my competitive advantage, circa 1998.
Wow.
But at that time, of course, the assault weapon ban had been in effect for 3 years already.
Right.
And so there's just some weirdness going on with how to get even things like spare parts for stuff you already owned. And you never, some of the stuff, you were telling me earlier that you've been reading through the proposed legislation, and what do you see in there?
My gosh, I see a lot of headaches. So Dianne Feinstein's 2013 assault weapons bill, it's 120 pages long, and it amends another piece of the federal firearms code, which is another lovely weekend of reading. But you only need to get a few pages into it to see where she's going. So, and I might have this wrong, but the summary title is the 2013 assault weapon ban. It's banning. Was it limiting transfers? I'm sorry, I can't remember the whole thing. But anyway, there are some things in there that you need to be very concerned about. Let me just tell you that. First of all, pistol grips are defined very loosely. They can make anything they want a pistol grip, because it basically says the definition of a pistol grip is anything that can be used as a gripping surface. Well, I mean, that's everything. When we're talking about rifles here, we're talking about semi-automatic rifles, but that's everything.
And then I've heard more than one person say that the reason they're going after pistol grips is because it makes the gun more deadly.
Oh, sure.
And now that's this week's trivia question. Why am I more deadly than Larry? Because I have a pistol grip. So remember that. If you're thinking about, features, here it is. And apparently it doesn't matter. We were talking about some news program where they've got the gun like this, and they're saying, okay, this gun seems to be perfectly legal, but now it's not, because it's got this distinct pistol grip. And I'm not even certain, based on the discussion I've seen, that they're not talking about a vertical foregrip on a rifle. They're not necessarily even talking about the pistol grip that's at the back of the gun. They're talking about the one that might be at the front of the gun.
Yeah, no, this is also new. These are things that are coming out today, the last few days of January here. Congress is hearing about what's the difference. There are guys on our side saying, what's the difference? Here's a semi-automatic Mini 14. It fires the .223 round, just like the AR-15. This is perfectly legal. This is okay.
As long as it's got a wood stock.
Well, it's got a wood stock, so it doesn't look scary, right? But then they hold up this pistol grip to it, and it wasn't clear to me if they were. It wasn't clear to me if they were trying to hold it up to the fore end or the back end, or if the guy was just holding it up, not really paying attention to where he was holding it. But it did kind of look like he was holding it to the fore end.
Right.
And he seemed intelligent enough to not do that on purpose. But so why does this all of a sudden make it so much more dangerous than gripping the wood stock when my wrist is canted forward like that? It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's cosmetics is all it is.
Yeah, well, but you can ask the same question of why does a bayonet lug make a gun more dangerous? I mean, I know there have been mass
I can
banditings
have a knife.
lately, but yeah.
I can have a knife and I can have a gun, but I can't put them together.
But I mean,
not that I would. But
one of the problems that we face is that the people who are writing the legislation don't really know what they're talking about.
And they're playing on the fears of the public who is otherwise ignorant of these things. Ignorant meaning...
And I think that's interesting, too. The idea that the public is ignorant, I find to be interesting because we keep hearing, like half the homes in the United States have a gun in it, and the AR-15 pattern rifle is the most popular gun in America. And people, civilians, Colt's been selling AR-15 derivatives to the public for over 40 years and maybe close to 50 years. So it's not like it's something that's just come on the scene and nobody knows anything about it. You think of all of the people who have served in the military just since the first Gulf War, just in the last 20 years.
They come home,
that's
what they trained on.
Exactly.
That's what they want, because they were already trained on that weapon. That's what they want. They want an AR and
so
an M9.
It's no surprise that the gun is popular. But then it surprises me that since it's so popular, how come there's so much ignorance surrounding it?
I know.
And I don't know that it's something you can fix in a day. When you have some elected official standing in front of them and telling them that a bayonet lug is dangerous, if you don't really know much about guns, you might think, oh my God, a bayonet lug, and not really know what they're talking. Just like a barrel shroud.
Right.
Come on.
You don't want a barrel shroud.
Right? I have to admit.
God forbid we hold rifles with two hands.
Yeah, I won't allow a barrel shroud in my house. That's how dangerous they are. I have children at home. And no barrel shrouds for me.
And if you don't know what that is, it's the shoulder thing that goes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Look it up.
Yeah, look it up. Yeah.
Google, YouTube, shoulder thing that goes up. There'll
probably be a video associated.
It'll be. Yeah. Now you're aware of what a barrel shroud is. Pause our video.
Right.
No, okay, now you're back. Okay, good.
Now that you're educated. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, assuming that it looks like the gun control advocates are going for everything, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah,
we're here in Washington, and here in our state legislature today, I think a bill was proposed that would create a gun registration that's based on the sex offender registration.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and one of my representatives wrote back in reply to me, because I'm writing my representatives, like hopefully you guys are, and said that he introduced that bill. I didn't know it was introduced yet.
Yeah, I think it was today.
So
essentially you just have, and like the point that I had, I'm just like, it's one of those things like, okay, we don't think felons should own guns. We don't think people who are criminally insane should own guns.
Right.
And so if somebody said to me, is it really such a bad thing that if somebody who has a history of violent crime with a gun,
you've shown you can't be responsible,
should that person maybe be given greater scrutiny than other people? On the face of it, I might go, but then I started to think, but what it does is it creates this sense that every person who owns a gun is one felony away from being a person on this list. It's sort of like it gives you this sense that yes, the government it's within their power to create lists that make gun owners second-class citizens, and that's the part of it that scares me.
I haven't read the language yet. I'm interested in reading it. At first, I thought, well, that sounds like a good idea. Some kind of as a model of the sex offender program. A couple bad things about that, though. Hopefully we don't have a map showing where all the bad gun owners are, right? or the guys that aren't supposed to have guns. Yeah. We don't want that for a couple different reasons. But the other thing I thought of was, and it says officers or some other title individual, which to me sounded like kind of like a parole officer, exactly, are supposed to go check up on these guys. Well, I'm not sure if I'd want to be that guy going, hey, Mr. Johnson, just want to make sure you don't have that. Oh, crap, I guess you do. So how you enforce it, it'll be interesting.
Well, and then how to pay for it. That's the other thing. I'd be very surprised if there's a funding mechanism included in the legislation.
Yeah.
It's this idea we're going to create a new bureaucracy, essentially, to monitor this gun offender program. And every time the state starts to run a little short of money, they threaten to stop ambulances. It's like, if you guys don't vote for this, we're gonna, we won't have any ambulances, we won't have any running water, we won't have any electricity. But boy, they'll fully fund the old, gun offender database. And so I just think it's just an idea, though. It's an idea that this guy's probably had for 5 years, and he feels like now's the time that maybe he can get it through.
And he's my representative in my district. His name's Mike Hope. He's A+ NRA ranked, and
he's a cop.
He's a cop. He's a Seattle cop, and he's an all-around good guy. I've even invited him to come shooting, and then at one of our matches, and maybe we'll get him out there sometime. Honestly, so.
Yeah. So anyway, since the topic of our show is competition shooting, we should probably delve into how does this stuff potentially affect the shooter. And of course, we're waiting on an IDPA rule book. And so all this stuff, waiting to see what might come down the road. Well, who knows what it's going to be?
Right, and it's probably maybe it's already at the printers almost.
Yeah,
and so now they're going to go, oh crap.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like
are they? I mean, IDPA is already 10-round friendly.
Yeah, the sport was introduced in '96 during the original assault weapon ban, and so nationwide, 10 rounds was the limit anyway. And so when the sport was introduced, it had 10-round capacity limits, and so that. Certainly made sense at the time. People, since the assault weapon ban sunsetted in 2004, there's been some questions like, why do we continue with it? But the thing that USPSA faced is that they had this sport is about high cap, run and gun. Oh yeah,
it was established 20 years before the ban started.
Yeah. So what did they do? I mean, what was the USPSA response?
Well, now I got into USPSA in 2002, but as I understand it, the limited 10 and production divisions, they didn't immediately overnight appear. I remember in 2002, I was one of 3 literally shooting production, and people were like, production? Yeah, I don't know the rules to that. And eventually, when I learned the rules, the match directors at the various clubs would send people to me, go ask Larry about the production rules, because
I think it was about 2000. It was about 2000.
And I think you're right. I think you're right. But still, in 2002, it was still so new. There was nobody shooting it hardly. Sometimes I'd win the match because I was the only guy there shooting production, even though there's 50 people at the match. Can you imagine? I mean, we've got 30 production shooters, 35 at a local match, at a club match these days sometimes. It's just amazing.
Well, I had been shooting limited with my 8-round mags, and then when limited 10 was introduced, I went out and bought some 10-round mags and started playing limited 10. Yeah. And I just thought that was I didn't need to get a new gun, but I got 2 more rounds.
You went up in capacity.
Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the funny, at the time, it seemed kind of funny, for the guys who were shooting single stacks, is that we're like going, we never had 10-round mags before, but now that there's a limit on 10, now we've got our 10-rounders.
That's great.
And I shot limited 10 for almost 10 years. I mean, it was the only division I ever shot. And, and it's really the introduction of single stack has just about killed it. I mean, limited 10, production has become so popular. Ammunition costs drove part of that. It's a lot cheaper to shoot 9mm. Most of the people shooting limited 10 were shooting 45s. So the production sucked some people away. And guys who were shooting single stacks, I think some of them were drawn away by single stack division. So unfortunately, limited 10 is pretty dead as we speak today.
Which is why I can win the matches in limited 10 now. And win the championship series in limited 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's playing anymore.
But 6 months from now, it might be, again, nationwide, one of the most popular divisions. And
I just shot limited 10 for the first time last year at a classifier match. Got classified so I could get ready for the championship series, and now I'm pretty much done with limited 10. I just shot it for a year and just to go check it out and
I haven't shot see what I can do. I haven't shot limited 10 for 2 years now, but I still got my gun. I still have my 10-round mags. So depending on what assault weapon ban 2013 looks like, L10 might jump up in popularity again, just because that's the kind of equipment people can get. And that's the thing too about we don't know what future laws are going to look like. The 1994 law essentially grandfathered in high cap mags. Guns that had these evil features on them, you continued to allow to own them and use them if you already had them.
Right.
And so guys who had been shooting open and limited for years and had a half a dozen 20 or 30 round mags were they were legally allowed to continue to use them. But those divisions were going to see a drop off in new shooters because you couldn't readily find those magazines. And people who lived in some parts of the country.
I was just going to say, like California, the ban never sunset.
Right.
And in 2004, we all came out as free men again. Yeah. And California just kept right on trucking.
Yeah. I think,
so they are still under that. If you're grandfathered in, with not only your magazines, but in some cases your gun.
Yeah, I mean, like I was one of the things out of California is the law that says you can't, the magazine cannot be released from the gun by pushing a button with your finger.
I didn't know that.
And so their ARs that they sell in California have what are called, they call them something like bullet buttons. There's a little
so you hit it
hole.
with your thumb or what?
No, with a bullet. You push the nose of a loaded round into a little hole in the receiver that depresses a recessed magazine button.
Sense.
And so some guys, I mean, I've heard stuff like guys will have a little protrusion like in the palm of their hand that they can use to hit that
sewn
button
into their glove.
Just stuff like that. And so it's like the old invention. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
You pass a law that says we can't do this,
and now we have to conform.
We're going to come up with a way to beat it.
Figure it out. Yeah.
And so the impact that a future law might have depends entirely on what the law looks like, because. Right. If we follow I read the list of guns that we banned by name in the new Feinstein legislation, and it looked just like the 1994 list because it included a bunch of guns that haven't been produced for 15 years. It's like I specifically remember the Springfield Armory. I think it was called like the SAR-8 or something like that, which was Springfield Armory's Brazilian-made imported FAL knockoff. And I don't think they've even sold that gun in the United States for 15 years, but it's there on the list.
Right.
I'm like going, did you really think they were going to start up production of it again in 2013? So all they've done is just add some new guns to the old 1994 list, just different companies, because the AR market has exploded sort of like the 1911 market did, in that you used to have Colt was the biggest maker, but then you also had DPMS and Armalite and some other companies. But now every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you look through Shotgun News, and there's 24 different companies, 24 different companies that are offering strip blowers, and then the accessories are even crazier. All the different types of tubes, hand guards, and stocks, and pistol grips, and it's just crazy. And that market. Those are the two biggest markets, I think, in the United States, the 1911 market and the AR market. But the AR market could take a huge hit if some of this ridiculous, I don't mind calling it ridiculous, if they ban bayonet lugs, really. No, but it's just, you never, and the last time it was ridiculous, the way you ban a gun by name. It'd be like saying, we're going to ban all guns named Fred. Okay, well, starting tomorrow, Fred's going to be called Bob, and then it's legal again. It's
exactly.
Just, and again, it's one of those, you give us a stupid law and we'll find a clever way to get around it. But some stuff like you cannot buy new magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. If you don't already own a bunch of 10-round magazines, you're going to be in trouble. We were discussing earlier the ban that's already passed in New York State that limits capacity to 7 rounds. Now, from the competition side of things, that for USPSA, you could, I guess, change production to a max of 7, change all divisions to a max of 7, and continue to play. USPSA would not change the rule. You wouldn't think so. But then how do you grow a sport where nobody can come into it?
Are you saying if the 7 round was nationwide?
If the 7 round was nationwide.
Oh, well, yeah. Then maybe it would be production 7 and limited 7, and open would just go away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe open would turn into ported carry guns, So.
Yeah, it's just, it's interesting. You look at, I think Hawaii is another one of the states that still has a ban on capacities of, I think, higher than 10 rounds. But if you live on an island, it's probably a little bit easier to keep the flow of magazines, from coming and going. So maybe Hawaii is going to be able to.
They still get mail on UPS.
Yeah,
so.
but I just, I don't know. I don't know. I would like to think that we're not going to have to worry about it, but everybody is worried about it.
Wasn't New Jersey 15-round limit? And what was that about? I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably we don't have to go down that road, but what was that about, New Jersey?
Maybe the cops, maybe all the New Jersey state cops have 15-round guns or something. I don't know.
Probably do, the Glock 22.
Yeah, but then even when you can get the stuff, even if you could get your high-cap mags, what about costs?
Oh my gosh.
I remember
the 1994 ban, what it effectively did, the only effect it really had was it made a $15 Glock magazine $90 to $120.
Yes.
And I remember becoming a gun owner during the ban at 98, starting competition in 2002, and the gun came with 10-round mags. I remember buying, I still have it, Generation 1 non-fully metal line Glock 19 mag, 15 round mag, for $90, I think. You know, and you have to rip it out of the gun because it won't fall out. So,
right.
But that's what we were stuck with, and it was like, well, if I want one, I'm gonna have to get one, and that's the only way to get one. So
yeah,
it was a previously, produced before the ban for certain. So.
Yeah. Well, and during the period of the ban, high cap magazines were still produced, but they were stamped for law enforcement and military use only.
Yes.
And so, if you were caught with a high cap mag, there was no way to tell. You could tell if it was law enforcement marked or not, but you couldn't tell if it wasn't marked law enforcement only when it was made.
Right.
It's not like
the assumption was it was made beforehand.
Exactly.
Right? So.
Exactly. So another reason why the law was ridiculous is that they established this law that said you cannot sell new high capacity magazines, but they didn't put anything in place that could differentiate a new one from an old one that didn't have the law enforcement markings. Right. And so again, it was illegal to do so. But again, with no way to tell if the magazine is new or old, you kind of, when we talk about rules, I always say rules that are hard to enforce are stupid. Laws that are hard to or impossible to enforce are stupid too.
Absolutely.
But I think you're looking at a situation where if an assault weapon ban 2013 is implemented and it looks anything like assault weapon ban 94, you're going to find it not impossible to get high cap mags. High cap meaning standard cap. I mean, we say high cap. Essentially now the language has revolved around this original ban that says any magazine that holds more than 10 is a high capacity magazine.
Right.
When most of these guns we're talking about, when they were introduced,
that was the standard.
They always held more than 10.
I mean, the Glock 17 was introduced with 17 rounds.
But it's going to be increasingly difficult to get that stuff, and increasingly difficult means increasingly expensive.
So if we go nationwide 10 rounds, the impact to our sport would be what? So IDPA, we've already kind of said, not much. It's already 10 rounds.
Yeah, you just reload every 7 rounds instead of reloading every 10 rounds.
I suspect limited 10 would become more popular in USPSA.
Yeah.
Production would become more popular, although it's already the fastest growing and probably almost the most popular division, second to limited, I think, these days.
But now what about 3-gun?
What about 3-gun? Man, it was already too expensive to play as it is for me. I don't own any 3-gun gear. I don't own a rifle or shotgun, so I'm just generally not interested in 3-gun, mainly because of the cost. If I had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, I think it'd be fun to try out. But now, I mean, a friend of mine was telling me, he was buying stripped lowers the first week of December for $60, and now that 2 weeks later after the Sandy Hook thing, or maybe by the end of the month, it was $500 for the same thing.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And people are buying them. Yeah. And you can't find guns on the shelf. You can't find mags. You cannot find ammo. It's just, it's 94 all over again. It's 2008 with the respective ammo. It's 2008 all over again. Oh, so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, some buddies of mine that shoot, we have a tactical rifle match that's held at a club up north of here.
I shot him once with the 22 rifle. But
and one of the guys was saying, just going up there to shoot the match, it's $200. I mean, 223 ammo is over $1 a round when you can find it. And so they're saying $200. And then if you attend, like major 3-gun matches where you're shooting, you might shoot 300 or 400 rounds of rifle and another 100 or 200 rounds of pistol plus shotgun. Yeah. I mean, can you come up with enough of all those different kinds of ammo to shoot the match?
Right.
And then B, can you afford to do it?
So hopefully you're reloading, and hopefully you've already got components, because if not, you're hurting right now.
Well, and that's the thing. I started collecting 223 brass about 10 years ago, and I've not hand loaded it. But the problem now is projectiles. Yeah. A buddy of mine who was following the website of a major bullet maker, they kept showing that they were out of their 223 bullets. They're out. He'd go back every day. And then finally, the website says, here's the 55 grain 223s. And he clicks on it. There aren't any available. And they'd sold out of their entire stock in 7 minutes.
Wow.
And so he's one of these guys who likes to shoot tac rifle, and he does hand load. But now, even if he can afford it, he can't get the parts.
I suspect that sport's going to take a hit in membership, in participation for sure.
Yeah.
But you know what you can do? You can go shoot some Steel Challenge. I mean, it's
We've been harping on that a lot
If
lately.
you're super accurate, it's 5 shots per run. You
Yeah.
could do it with a 7-round magazine, plus one in the chamber. You can do it with 10-round magazines. So if you're just getting into competition and you're wondering, how do I get into competition, and you found the Power Factor show, and we're advocating that you guys go try this. Again, we get messages sometimes go, oh, you guys are great. I don't compete or anything, but you guys are really great. I'm like, well, go compete. That's what we're doing. So, so if you're just now getting into it, maybe Steel Challenge is what you need to look for. Or if you're lucky enough to have a Pro-Am nearby. I mean, I don't know. That'd take a lot of 7-round magazines to go through a Pro-Am.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things.
Maybe it'd be 20 targets in 7 seconds instead of 40 targets in 15 seconds.
If you are new to the sport or contemplating shooting the sport, you might want to consider selecting your gear based, I hate to say this, but you might want to consider selecting your gear based on what's going to happen in the next few months. You maybe don't want to go out and get that new $4,000 open blaster for Valentine's Day for your girlfriend. You might want to go out and get a 7-shot revolver, or you might want to go out and get a Glock or something.
Or a single stack 45.
Single stack. Even if we ended up with a 7-round limit nationwide, there's tons. They've been making 7-round 45 mags for 100 years now, so there should be a decent supply.
That was the original capacity, right?
Yep, 7 was before they started.
And then if you get a one of the compact models, the 4-inch models, with the, help me out, the Commander size, is that it?
Well,
are those 7-round mags?
Commander has the same length grip as the government model.
Oh, okay. And then the
officers models have the shorter grip.
Okay, gotcha.
So
I'm not a 1911.
Well, we're working on him. He will be one of these days.
I can't shoot those things.
Yeah, but whatever you do, don't get one of these.
I'm going to put this on my 1911.
Larry,
I need that.
I don't even want you to touch this.
Are you afraid of me?
I've been compromised by years of AR shooting, but I think you should remain pure. I don't want to see you in there next to me in the cell.
I'm going to put my knife inside of that grip, and now it's lethal.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I think we better pixelate that. I don't think we want to see that in public.
Don't tell Feinstein. No, she'll ban that too.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But don't be dejected by the gloomy outlook. If you want to shoot in competition, pick your equipment. Get that ammo. If you're not a hand loader, you probably should be, because I remember when ammo, I could go to the local Big Five or Dick's or any of these chain sporting goods stores and get 100 rounds of 9mm for $12.
Yep.
And now I think a 50-round box is more than $12, and it's if you can find it, and it's probably going to be
I bought some
$32 here before long.
I bought some late summer when we were talking about doing an IDPA episode for me. And I was like, well, I don't like loading 9. I don't have any 9mm components. I trade all my 9 brass for 40. So I went out and bought a 100-round box, and it was like $23 at the time for the Walmart value pack Winchester. Right. Now it's like, I don't know, who knows. If you can even find it, it's going to be more than that. 50 rounds is probably $20.
So definitely, if you've never hand loaded before, I would say now is a really good time to consider it.
It's really not that difficult.
Assuming you can get your components.
Right.
That's the thing. If brass is probably now going to be the easiest thing to find, because after a shooting match, it's laying there on the ground. But you also, I remember what happened in 10 years ago, is the value of scrap metal got high enough that spent brass was being sold as scrap metal.
More valuable to scrap it
than being, and there were people that I knew who would occasionally would give brass away, guys who worked at shooting ranges. Yeah. They might show up with a gallon bag full of brass here, and instead they were selling it to the scrap metal dealer. And so there's all kinds of weird, and then there was the thing that went down a few years ago where the Army, one of the largest suppliers to the aftermarket of brass is the military, and they apparently somebody had misinterpreted some order, and they were destroying the brass or demilling it, and so it was not usable as reloadable brass. They were essentially converting it into scrap before selling it to the public. and there was a sense that it was this kind of back end around gun control kind of a thing, and I think some senators stepped in, and it turned out it was all misunderstanding, or at least that's the way it was presented. But that is something that it wouldn't surprise me if something like that came down the road again too. Like, why provide the citizens with this reloadable brass if we can find a way to just cut it up or crush it before we sell it? And I can foresee that kind of stuff happening. So don't be surprised if you've got supplies of brass. Where I was going with my 9mm story is I figured if 100 rounds of 9mm is $12, why am I ever going to hand load it? And I started giving my brass away. Well, I had hundreds of thousands probably of 9mm cases. I started giving to people. I'm never going to load this again. Well, now I'm like going, I'm probably never going to buy. I may never buy another round of factory loaded ammo again. The way it's looking now. So.
I don't plan on it. I don't plan on buying any factory at all, honestly. So I don't know. Don't let it happen. It's doom and gloom. It's doom and gloom. It's looking bad. But don't let it happen. Call your representatives. Write your representatives. Ruger.com has a little thing where you can put in your address and your name and all that, and just hit send, and they'll send a message to every one of your representatives. They know exactly. They figure out who they are based on your address. If you haven't done that yet, do it. There's a pre-recorded, pre-typed out message that you can use, or you can make your own. And I did that, and then I've been getting replies, and a lot of their replies I know for a fact are just, form letters. Steve from our show got a letter back from our senator. I got the same thing with the paragraphs kind of rearranged. So their aide is getting a little creative, Right. But I got essentially the same, reply. And then I try to reply back to that, and then the email is a no reply. It blocks it. So now I'm going to reply back through the Ruger website and go, but.
Yeah, I contacted both of my state senators, and the first one sent back a gun control specific response, thanking me for my concern, expressing their concern for gun violence, and their respect for the Second Amendment.
Oh, I respect it, but I want some common sense, blah, blah, blah.
But then
the
other response that I got from my other senator was essentially non-specific. I mean, it was like a response that they would send.
Was it more than 2 sentences?
It was a decent size.
Because I literally got 2 sentences from one of our senators.
But it was just it's just literally, thank you for your concern. All of my constituents are important to me, and I will give this a lot of thought. Right. Without really telling me what their thoughts are. At least then you've got some idea of where they stand. I mean, I've seen some responses from other people's elected representatives who say, they come right out and they say, I'm going to push for an assault weapon ban. I'm going to push for magazine capacity limits. And then, those are the people that, you need to work on. But I'd say, in the political environment where the most important thing a politician does is run for re-election. If they think it's unpopular to support some legislation, that's the way to change their mind, is convince them that it's unpopular by hitting. They're gonna ask their assistant, well, how many letters did we get on gun control today? Well, we got 500 people that are pissed off and 50 that are behind you. And maybe they'll change their mind. So go ahead and be polite, be respectful.
Absolutely.
Don't use any swear words. But make your point. Make your point. Don't
call
be
them any
bashful.
names. Don't call them any names or anything like that. But go ahead and say, your job's on the line, and I'm not going to vote for you because of this. Maybe you voted for a person last time that was a proponent of gun rights, but now they're not, of whichever party they might come from. But, just tell them, hey, not voting for you next time.
So that's about it. Hopefully we'll have more pleasant news the next time we take up this topic.
Hopefully so. Yeah. One more thing I want to point out. We're talking about specific language in the first part of the show here about what's in the 2013 ban. If you think it's only assault rifles that are up for grabs, forget it. There is actual language in there, you'll be surprised by this too, that there's a language that defines an assault weapon, not just rifle, but weapon, as a pistol with certain features. And one of those features is that pistol is a semi-automatic version of a fully automatic pistol. Well, guess what? There is such thing as a Glock 18, which is fully automatic, which was invented after 1986. Look up that law, the Firearm Owners Protection Act. Because of that, we can't. It's not even transferable. It's not even an option for a civilian to own a fully automatic Glock 18. But because it exists, all Glocks are now up for grabs as an assault weapon. So the most popular handgun in the United States, used by 65% of all police forces, probably in the hands of 50% of all gun owners almost, who knows. But now the same thing goes for Beretta. Beretta 93R is a burst fire pistol. It's selectable. You can have semi-auto or a 3-round burst out of that pistol. Because the 93R exists, your Beretta 92 and your Beretta 96 and your Beretta 98, not that there's any in the United States hardly, but those are all up for grabs because of that. If there is such a fully automatic CZ75, I'm not that familiar with the European guns. If there is such a thing as a fully automatic HK USP, your HK USP is up for grabs. So get active, read some of that language, and tell your representatives that you're not interested in playing this game. So here's our trivia question for the week. This is a USPSA question, and I'm going to be very clear about the rules this time. We want the answer, and we want you to cite the rule number where it comes from. You have exactly 1 week to answer the question. We've been getting answers on Tuesday for the question that was 8 days earlier, so those guys are a little bit too late. So we asked the question on a Monday, get it in by the next Monday. Here it is. What is the penalty for committing a forbidden action? Have you seen a forbidden action on your stage briefing? And if you commit that, if you break that rule, what is the penalty? That's it. USPSA question. So for future episodes, we are requesting your stage designs. If you're toying around with stage designs, if you help out your local club, IDPA or USPSA, hopefully maybe we'll get 2 episodes out of it. We'll do an IDPA episode, we'll do a USPSA episode. That seemed to be popular 50 episodes ago, thereabouts.
Yeah, well, and even if what you have is a stage design idea, I mean,
an element.
Yeah, because I mean, the last time what we did is essentially took printed, finished stage designs and kind of critiqued them.
Yeah.
But it would be kind of fun too if you just have a stage design idea.
Yeah.
I'd be happy, like on an IDPA stage, to kind of walk through the process of how to turn this idea into a legal stage.
There you go. That's cool.
So even if it's just like a part of a stage, I give a scenario in mind, fire it away, and we'll see what we can do.
That'd be awesome. So send that in, and also just again to remind you, the show's free. The show's always going to be free. It does, however, cost money to put the show on. We've got all kinds of hosting fees and everything else. So if you can find it in your heart, hit that donate button and send us a few bucks. That'd be nice.
Yeah, please.
So find us. Where do they send their answers, Rick?
You can send us an email at
Email's
powerfactorshow@gmail.com.
If you don't want to give your trivia answer away to everybody on Facebook or YouTube, send us an email for the trivia question.
Yeah.
The website is powerfactorshow.com. What's the YouTube address?
Still don't know.
Power Factor Show on YouTube, Facebook.com/Power Factor Show. We'll catch you next week. Thanks a lot, and contact your representatives.